hey, I severely overcomplicated nutrition. All I needed to do was just by default, you become a walking billboard for the movement. They think that going vegan is just cutting out meat, chicken, and all of these things, which it is, but they don't find a replacement. Yeah, it almost pulled me back a few times. I just couldn't eat in a way that would make me feel lean and tight and muscular back. It made the world of a difference for me. So I 100% wish that I would have put a bigger emphasis. I found that to be such a leveraging way of converting people and leading people to this healthy lifestyle. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fit Vegan Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the top 10 lessons that I've learned from being vegan for 10 years. That is right. On October 18th, it will be 10 years that I've been vegan. It's crazy. I can't believe it's already been that long. I know this episode is coming out on the 17th, so I pre-recorded it to kind of align and just also make sure we had time to edit it to pass it on to you guys. So I took some time this morning to write and reflect on what are some of the things that I wish I knew when I went vegan over a decade ago, which again sounds crazy to say that I've been vegan for 10 years, but I feel that's what happens when you stick to something long enough. Eventually the years just kind of stack on and then you get to an impressive number like a decade. So I'm excited to get to 2 decades. All right, welcome to the Fit Vegan Podcast. I'm your show host, Maxime Sigouin, and I'm the founder and CEO of Fit Vegan Coaching, a company that is on a mission to help 10,000 people get lean, thrive, and reduce their risk of chronic illnesses by 2033 and 1 million by 2050. I believe that having a fit, healthy body and mind is the foundation to living an incredible life, and this is what the show will give you if you choose to listen and implement. Enjoy the episode and have a great day. So the number one thing I'm going to share on the list, again, they're in no particular order. It was just me kind of brainstorming and kind of writing down some of the things that I've learned. One thing that I've made, and it was a big mistake getting started and honestly almost got me out of veganism, was that I severely overcomplicated how I needed to eat my food. You know, I watched Forks Over Knife when I first transitioned, as you guys are familiar with my story. And I started to do some research, and they were talking about micronutrients and B12 and iron and vitamin C. And I didn't have all the knowledge that I have today, but I was looking at all these numbers, and I was obsessing over trying to make sure that I had an absurd amount of diversity per meal. Like I was trying to get 15, 20 different plants in one meal. And then I was trying to do that differently every single meal for the rest of the day. And so it was getting so complex for me to be like, okay, I can't have this vegetable because I already had this vegetable for lunch. I need to have a different vegetable for dinner, but I need to have like 5 different types of vegetable. And I obsessed over trying to get all the little micronutrients to a small detail every single meal and every single day. And honestly, it was sucking the fun out of it. It was making it so hard and complex that it made me not want to do this. And it made me not want to go back to what I was doing before. And so because I was a type A perfectionist, I was like, if I'm gonna go vegan, I'm gonna do it right. It kind of burned me out a little bit. And so I felt that if I didn't do that, then I was gonna be unhealthy, which was kind of the opposite of why I was trying to do that. And now, being 10 years into it and, having coached 800 plus people through it, just focus on diversity. Keep it simple, right? If I go to the grocery store and I buy fruits and vegetables, I will buy enough for a few days, and then I'm gonna bring them to my house and I'm gonna eat them. And then when I run out of them, I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to buy different types of fruits and vegetables, and that's going to be my diversity. When I run out of one grain, I will buy another grain, right? We always have like 3 or 4 grains in the house, but once we run out of those, we make sure to buy another one. So a big bag of another type. So if I have farro in the house and that bag runs out, I may go buy a bag of quinoa, and I'll use quinoa in rotation with maybe, some brown rice, some sweet potatoes, or other things like that. So number one mistake I made was, hey, I severely overcomplicated nutrition. All I needed to do was just focus on diversity, that when I run out of bananas, banana is always a staple. I don't vary that one. But, I go buy blueberries, I go buy strawberries, I go buy blackberries and raspberries. Like, to not over complexify the whole process of eating when you transition to eating vegan and eating plant-based. Because to me, it almost took me out of it, because I was like, it was so much easier for me to just eat, broccoli, steak, and potatoes, broccoli, chicken and rice, right? It was just so much easier for me to do that and then have to think of all of these things. And so I didn't have to do that. If I just focused on diversity, it would have taken care of everything. So that's lesson number one. If you are transitioning right now, just focus on diversity. When you're out of a thing, go buy another thing. And then again, it will make the process so much more enjoyable. and it will make you feel burnt out, like you're fearing of running out of a nutrient. Because think of the opposite. If I went back to eating chicken, rice, and broccoli, I wouldn't have gotten a lot of nutrition, but because society deemed it as healthy to eat meat, I thought that I was getting all the nutrients that I needed through eating chicken, rice, and broccoli. But when you think of it, there is a massive lack of diversity in eating chicken, rice, and broccoli every single meal for 5 meals a day. And so I was way better off just eating whole food, plant-based, and eating a diversity than I was reverting back. So my logical brain thought that eating chicken, rice, and broccoli would provide me all the nutrients that I needed because that's what I grew up with. But ultimately, just eating plant-based was far ahead of where I would have been. And also, I just have to say, like a decade ago when I went vegan, there was no vegan junk food or anything like that. It literally took me a few years to realize that Oreos were vegan, and that was a game changer in a bad way. But back in the day, there was little blocks of tofu that were banana flavored or strawberry flavored, and that was a treat, right? I was like, oh man, I'm getting some. That was my dessert, right? So it was a banana tofu and strawberry tofu, and it was okay, right? It wasn't like the food that we have today. There was no vegan Ben and Jerry's. There was none of that stuff. Also, a decade ago, just for those of you that have been vegan for that long, like that was the era of Durian Ryder, Freely the Banana Girl, Raw Christina. There's another girl. She was vegan too, and she got destroyed online because she ate fish at one point and she got caught on camera. I can't remember what her name is, but yeah, that was like kind of that era of Durian Ryder, Freely the Banana Girl, doing Banana Island, which I've done. I ate 30 bananas a day for 30 days. I went raw. I've tried raw vegan. I tried raw till 4. So you eat raw foods until 4 p.m. and then you eat cooked foods. I've tried juicing. I've tried to be 100% raw vegan. I tried vegan keto as well. I've tried a lot of the things that were popular at that time, and a lot of them left me feeling like I just felt skinny fat. I just felt fluffy and puffy. I didn't feel like lean and tight and muscular like I was used to feeling when I was doing bodybuilding, right? When I was doing bodybuilding, I felt super tight. I felt strong. I felt lean. And when I went vegan, I lost all of that. And again, that was another thing. I was like, I can't get lean on this thing. Like I should just go back to what I was doing before. But again, I was committed to getting skinny for modeling, which my original reason for getting into veganism. So I was committed to getting skinny enough to model. And that's the reason I didn't deviate from it, because I was trying to lose as much muscle mass as possible. But yeah, it almost pulled me back a few times because I just couldn't eat in a way that would make me feel lean and tight and muscular back then. And obviously I didn't have the knowledge that I have now, which that knowledge is what we've applied to help transform all of our members. So we know it works because it worked for me and it worked for 800 people, but I didn't have that knowledge back then. So that's basically the second lesson, was that being vegan didn't guarantee that I would feel lean, tight, and fit, right? Like I said, it's quite the opposite. It made me feel pudgy. It made me feel soft. It made me look skinny fat. I didn't like how I looked in the mirror. I didn't have a lot of definition. And from someone that was in the fitness industry for a long time, not being vegan, you can imagine I got ridiculed by the people at the gym that I was training with. They're like, hey, you kind of look like shit since you went vegan. I was like, yeah, but I kind of believe in this thing and I have to make it work. And so yeah, it took me many years before I figured it out. But just for you to know that it's not because you eat vegan, it's not because you eat whole food plant-based that you're guaranteed to get lean, tight, and fit, because there's a lot of people that are pudgy, skinny, fat, and overweight that eat this way, right? So there's a specific method to it, which is what we teach our members in the Fit Vegan program. Again, not a plug for the program, but just telling you that was one of my main concerns when I started, because I came from the fitness industry. I want to get skinny so that I could model, but because I was modeling, I had to be shirtless, right? You're shooting for underwear, for bathing suits and things like that. I had to be lean. I couldn't be soft and pudgy looking. So that was a big thing. Now I know that it's doable. I know how to do it, but back then it definitely made it harder for me to be lean. Third lesson is I wish that I put an emphasis on protein earlier because I was still training hard when I transitioned to veganism. So like I mentioned, I was feeling soft and pudgy. And one of the elements that I had completely stopped putting focus on was the protein content per day. Prior to being vegan, I was a typical bodybuilder, chicken, rice, and broccoli, a dozen eggs for breakfast with a bowl of oatmeal. That's how I was eating. And so I was able to put on a lot of lean muscle mass. I was able to get lean. I was able to stay strong. But when I transitioned to veganism, I just went down the path of, Durian Ryder and Flea the Banana Girl, because those were the examples that I had online. And Forks Over Knife was, again, more whole food, plant-based, high carbohydrate, low fat, low protein. And so I put that emphasis on making sure that I consume low amounts of protein. And again, I just felt soft and pudgy and I didn't feel strong. My body didn't look great. And then when I discovered several years after that, I was like, yeah, I don't want to stick to veganism just because I look like shit when I'm shirtless. And again, very young, superficial, but I didn't want to stick to it because I'm like, I don't look great and I don't feel great and I don't feel strong. I don't feel comfortable in my body. And so that's when I discovered, like, maybe let me apply some of the principles of bodybuilding to veganism. Let me just increase the protein. And that made the world of a difference. And it actually allowed me to get lean. It actually allowed me to put on more lean muscle. It made the world of a difference for me. So I 100% wish that I would have put a bigger emphasis on protein earlier in my training. That would have made the journey so much more enjoyable for me. So lesson number 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 was that the best way to convert someone to veganism or to eating plant-based is 100% to lead by example. I had my little evangelist phase of I'm going to save, like my little Jesus phase. I'm going to save all of you. You don't know what you don't know. You're eating meat and it's bad for you and you're going to get sick in the future, which we know that all of those things are true, but everyone, especially for me, when I went vegan, I had such hard convictions that I was really intense on my parents. I was really intense on my aunts and my uncles and my friends to the point where they're like, hey, you need to calm down. We don't want to talk to you if you're always going to be like this. And throughout the years, I've kind of calmed myself down. I've acquired wisdom in being in this industry and kind of doing this online and coaching people. And honestly, the best results I've ever gotten has never been to be in someone's face, to be like, you are a murderer, you're going to die early and all of these things, because it's very confronting for people. And you're challenging a belief that they've had their whole life. And to admit that you've been wrong your whole life is really hard. And it is very confronting. And most people on a whim are not going to be willing to accept that. And so what I found for me is, like, if I do me, if I compete in endurance events, if I stay in shape, if I lead by example, again, you don't have to do races or look like a bodybuilder. That was just my path and my journey I was on. If I can stay fit and healthy and I can still compete at a high level, then what ended up happening, and I wasn't doing this on purpose, I honestly just got tired of being an evangelist for veganism, that I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to do my thing. And I started doing my thing. And then people started asking me questions. They're like, hey, how are you able to like be this lean? How are you able to put on muscle? How are you able to do these events and all these things while being vegan? And that really opened the door and it allowed me to either plant seeds or water the seeds that were already planted for them by other people before me. And I found that to be such a much more leveraging way of converting people and leading people to this healthy lifestyle, that's just what I continued with, right? I went on to cycle from Vancouver to San Francisco. I went on to do several half Ironmans, a lot of triathlon races, a lot of crazy events on a plant-based lifestyle. And that led more and more people to ask questions. And that led more and more people to eating plant-based. I was able to, help my mom transition to eating plant-based. I thought she was able to get her amazing transformation that you see on our website. My dad's still working on it, but it's like 80-90% plant-based, which is phenomenal for someone that grew up, hunting and fishing and grew up in the country. So just leading by example, watering and planting the seed and being patient has been the best way to help people, to lead people to this beautiful lifestyle, right? I don't say the word convert, but to lead people to this lifestyle. And it's the same thing I did with my wife, Ivy. When we met, she was eating fish and I was like, you can do whatever you want. I just won't eat it myself. And I think it took about like 1.5 years of us being together and me continuing to eat this way. She had her own pan to cook her fish. She did her own thing when it came to that. I didn't want to have to do anything with it. And eventually she saw, obviously I had the blessing of having this coaching business that helps hundreds of people transform. She's like, well, those people are doing great. Maxim is doing great. Then maybe I should give it a shot. And then she started to not eat as much fish. And when she did that, she realized that she didn't pass out from protein deficiency. And she was like, what? I actually kind of feel good. And she just kept going with it. Now she's been vegan for almost over 1.5 years now. And so, yeah, the best way to lead people to this lifestyle is to lead by example. And I actually just finished interviewing Dr. Joel Fuhrman, and we had this beautiful conversation about that, how shaping this new piece of identity as you transition into this lifestyle. And that as soon as you embrace this lifestyle, as soon as you publicly say or tell anyone that you are doing this thing, that you're trying this thing, by default, you become a walking billboard for the movement, simply because it is outside of the norm of what society deems acceptable to eat. And because you're eating differently, because you're doing things differently, you're going to have more eyeballs on you. And so you unfortunately and fortunately you become a walking billboard. And so I've talked to people about this. Some people are like, I'm 50 pounds overweight, but I want to put out a good message for the movement. I was like, hey, as long as you're on your journey and you're improving yourself, and in a few months from now, you're 10 pounds lighter, and then another 20 pounds lighter, then you are leading by example. People want to see that there is a positive change when you adopt this lifestyle. And so if you say you're going to be vegan and you just eat a bunch of vegan junk food and you put on weight and you're unhealthy, your skin looks terrible and you don't have energy and you're groggy all the time, that is the image that the community around you will have of this movement. And so, hey, you get to live your life however you want. I just want to have as much impact as possible into people's health because of my story with cancer. And so to me, I put a bigger emphasis on leading by example, right? And for some people, you just have to be patient. Ivy took 1.5 years. My mom took 6 years, right? 6-7 years. 6 years. He actually went vegan almost 4 years ago. So 6 years for my mom to kind of transition after I've been vegan. And so just keep doing your thing. Just keep shining your light, leading by example, and you will be very amazed at the people that come to you. All right. So the next lesson, this one, I'm not annoyed by it anymore, but I'm just kind of used to it, and I kind of just dismiss it a little bit at this point. But people will often tell you why they can't go vegan and why it didn't work out for them. When I first transitioned to veganism, I would try my hardest to convince them in the moment and blah, blah, blah. And the reality is when sometimes I was at a restaurant and it was a waiter, or I was sitting in a bus and someone said something, it was always in a moment of where I had a short amount of time to kind of do that. And I would just trying to cram information into their head. And I've had the opportunity to connect with some of those people after, because I became this public figure online with the podcast, and the people reached out of like, hey, we had this conversation a while back. What was really helpful to them is when they said all these things, I'll be like, hey, that's amazing. There's a lot of people don't do it the right way. And there's a right way to do it when you get to have all of those benefits. So it seems that the way that you've tried was potentially not the right way. And so like, here are some great resources. And back in the day, I would refer them to, Forks Over Knife or some of those other documentary. Now I just refer them to this podcast or to our YouTube channel. And then they get to watch the recipes that Ivy and I make, the workout videos that we make on the YouTube channel, and the podcast episodes. And then they get to deepen their knowledge, have a better understanding, because I know that I won't be able to completely change their life in that moment. And so I just like to be upfront. It's like, hey, there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do it. You can go vegan and not know what to eat and eat a bunch of processed food and severely undereat. You do that for 2 weeks, like you're going to feel miserable. You're going to be tired. You're going to be lethargic. You're not going to recover well. And that leads people to have a bad experience because they think that going vegan is just cutting out meat, chicken, and all of these things, which it is, but they don't find a replacement. They don't change their nutrition to make sure that they're consuming enough energy and they're eating the right types of food. And so the big lesson there was, I know I'm not going to convert someone in the moment, so I have to be aware that I'm just either planting a seed or watering a seed, and I can offer, additional education material. And because I've been doing the podcast for almost 4 years now, I just refer them to the podcast. So big lesson for me in that front. Now, the next lesson, which again, we already talked about a little bit, but whether you like it or not, you are a walking billboard for people. And so you do have the power over having that positive influence, right? I kind of talked a lot about it in the previous point. The previous point was more that the best way to convert someone or to lead them to this lifestyle is by leading by example, not by being an evangelist. And then this lesson is that accepting that you are a walking billboard for veganism as soon as you tell people that you are, and you get to choose the positive influence and impact that you get to have on people depending on how you're living your life. And if you are that walking example. And it took me a long time to realize because I was just very preachy for a long time. And again, I got more hate. I got people that became more distant than me, and I didn't have the impact that I was having. And so I had to switch my mentality to, I'm just going to do me. And then it actually led more people to this beautiful movement. The next lesson is to pick your fights with people about veganism, especially at the beginning, just because I was so passionate when I transitioned to veganism. But I didn't have the arsenal to defend myself when I spoke to people, right? At first, they're like, but what about iron? What about B12? What about all these different nutrients? And what about, needing animal protein to live? I just knew that it wasn't right to eat animals. I just knew that it was healthier, but I didn't have enough arsenal to kind of defend myself when someone would bring up something about veganism. And so if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably do a little bit more research. I would find a community of people that are vegan, which again was harder to do with where I was living, a decade ago, and there was no one in my town really that were vegan. But I would just kind of stack up a little bit of information so that I could have this conversation with people. And now being vegan for a decade, if someone says something, I'll just be like, hey, that's awesome, right? I'm happy that you tried it or that it's not for you or whatever. There's a right way, there's a wrong way to do it. If you're open to learning how to do it, hey, more than happy to have a conversation with you. I do have, a podcast or a YouTube, refer them to a resource that you personally enjoy. But I've learned to not pick fights with people when it comes to veganism, because if they are in a standoffish energy, they're not in a position to open their heart and receive the information you're about to share with them. So I've learned to not fight with them, right? And at the end of the day, I know my stance. I'm comfortable. I'm confident in myself and what I'm doing because I've been at it long enough. And so right now, when someone says something, I'll just be like, hey, thumbs up. Good job. I'm happy for you, right? If you want to get healthier, this is the way to go. And on some days where I'm feeling cranky and standoffish, then I'll pick a fight with them because I have a huge arsenal of information and I know that I can back myself up. And I know all these incredible doctors now that I've had on the show. So I have the arsenal for it. But a lot of the time, it's just if I'm feeling cranky and I didn't sleep well. For the most part, I'm a very patient and calm person. So I just have a soft conversation with them and just trying to show them, hey, there's a way. A lot of people don't do it right. And so if you want more information or help, I'm here to help. Because I know veganism, especially in the last few years, been getting a lot of a bad rap. That's why a lot of companies, a lot of influencers are changing from saying the word vegan to using the word plant-based, right? Even at one point, I considered changing the name of the podcast and of our company instead of Fit Vegan. I couldn't find another name that was that good, to be honest with you. And it's tattooed in my bicep. So I'm not going to change the name. I love Fit Vegan. I love what it stands for. I love what we've built here. But a lot of companies start to step away from the word vegan and move towards the word plant-based because vegans, they had this stereotype, not all of them are like that because I'm not like that, of being in people's face, of being confrontational, of being harsh. And it just didn't leave people with a receptive mind when they heard that word, right? To be honest with you, that's a part of our challenge of running Fit Vegan Coaching is we have a lot of people we work with that want to transition to eating plant-based and they see the website, they see the podcast and like, whoa, I don't want to be vegan. And, we work with people that are not vegan, people that are transitioning or that simply want to eat more plant-based because to me, right, little sidetrack note here, but I don't need vegans to be more vegan. I need more people to eat plant-based. And so we work with people that simply want to eat more plant-based or want to transition to eating plant-based because that's where the impact is going to have. And the more people I can help eat plant-based, the more I can reduce all these people's risk of dealing with cancer and heart disease and diabetes and all these health issues. So, right, just a little side note. But yeah, at first, I didn't pick my fight and I got into a lot of fights with people about veganism and I didn't have the arsenal to kind of back up my arguments. And I wished I would have done more research before I did that. All right. The other lesson here, let's see what lesson that is. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Lesson number 8. All right. This one's more harsh language, but that's how I wrote it. So I'm going to say it. Don't be a dickhead vegan, right? Support other vegans. Vegans have, especially online, again, not everyone, but when you're in the public space, I do get a lot of messages. I do get comments under these YouTube videos and these podcasts, and I delete them because they're just stupid and I don't want to address them. But I've had people tell me, you're not a real vegan or your show is stupid because you're not talking about animal cruelty, you're not talking about the environment or whatever reason. And I've had people that have podcasts about environment that some people that are about health will come and bash them because they don't talk about health, or some people that talk about health and don't talk about animal cruelty and bash each other. Listen, we're all in the same boat. We're all here with the same outcome. We want more people to eat plant-based. We want less animals to die and suffer. We want to save the environment. We want everyone to be healthier, right? We are all in the same boat. But there's these hardcore people that will just come and bash other vegans that are making an effort, right? And so to me, that was a big lesson to learn. Again, I never stepped on the bandwagon of being a dickhead vegan. If someone wants to talk about environment, animal cruelty, health, hey, you do what you want to do. It doesn't change. I'm just going to do what I want to do. That's always how I've been. If I want to do something, I just do it, and I'll do it the way that I want to do it. And the people that align can stay, and the people that don't can go. But it is frustrating for me to talk to other vegan influencers and doctors, and sometimes learn that some of their biggest hating comments are coming from other vegans. They're not coming necessarily from meat eaters or from people from the meat industry, to people that are carnivores or whatever. So those people are always going to be there. But if you're a vegan, support other vegans regardless of what their path was to coming to this beautiful movement, right? And so to me, I'm going to put this message out there because I recorded a podcast with Colleen Patrick Boudreau, and we both talked about vegans being so harsh to other vegans online when it came to like influencers or whatever it may be. And I clarified on that podcast, I'm not an influencer, I am an entrepreneur, two very different things. But if I don't talk about animal cruelty enough and you think that it's important, you go and take all of your time and your resources to start a podcast, record those podcasts, find guests, edit all of your shows and publish them yourself, right? I have some guests that come on, we'll talk about animal cruelty, we'll talk about environment, but everything I do is centered around Fit Vegan. It's about health, it's about fitness, it's about body recomposition, and it's about mindset, right? I care about the animals, I care about the environment. This is not the center of this podcast. If you care that much, don't give me shit for it. Go start it yourself. You go spend your own resources and time starting a show, and you see how hard it is, right? Because by the time this episode goes live, November 18th, I believe, actually, so a month after this episode goes live, it'll be 4 years of me podcasting, and that's going to be about like 340, 350 episodes of podcasts. That is a ton of work. That is a ton of effort to do all of this. And so don't bash another vegan if they're not talking about what you want to talk about. Start your own show. You start talking about, you start spreading the message. So that was a big lesson for me. If I wanted the message that I have to share to be shared, it is not me bashing other people in this space to talk about the things that I want to talk about. It is not their responsibility. It is my responsibility, which is why I started my own show, right? I've been consistent at it for 4 years. So don't be a dickhead vegan. Gets me heated up every time. All right. Lesson number 9, right? If you are whole food plant-based, track your food to make sure you're eating enough. If you're a junk food vegan, track your food to make sure you're not eating too much, okay? Again, big lesson. I was whole food plant-based when I transitioned 10 years ago because there was nothing else, right? All there was whole foods and those little banana flavored tofu, which were, decent. So for me, I discovered that I was severely undereating because there was so much fiber, there was so much nutrient density that it left me feeling satiated really rapidly. And so what happened is I was severely undereating, but I thought I was eating a lot. I thought that I was eating enough, and I wasn't. And then after a few weeks, I was feeling really weak. I didn't have a lot of energy, and I was like, "What's something wrong with this?" So I started tracking my calories. I was like, "Well, I'm severely undereating. No wonder I feel this way." So I started to kind of increase my calories by adding more cooked foods, right? I was doing like sweet potatoes with almond butter and cinnamon in them. I would do things just to increase the calories to make sure I was consuming enough food for the exercise and the lifestyle that I was living at the time. And then even that on the flip side, when veganism became more popular and there was more junk food vegan options from someone that was eating whole food plant-based, and again, it wasn't for health necessarily at the time. I was eating vegan because I was trying to get skinny for modeling, right? It wasn't until I met my partner and she got sick with cancer that this whole journey of health kind of started some more. And so there was a phase between ending modeling and the cancer journey where vegan junk food became popular, and I jumped on that bandwagon because for so long I couldn't have pizza and ice cream and all the things that I had growing up, right? Did not care about health. I was way too young to care about that. I just wanted to eat the food. So I ate the food, but then I put on a ton of fat. And then I tracked my calories and I realized like, hey, I'm severely overeating. So even if it's vegan, it doesn't mean that it's healthy. And so big lesson, if you're whole food plant-based, make sure you track your food to make sure you're eating enough. If you're a junk food vegan, track your food to make sure you're not eating too much, right? Wish I would have learned that earlier on. Now, lesson number 10, all right, is understand that it's not about perfection, but consistency. So what I mean by that is I've been vegan for a decade, but there has been several moments where I had dairy or eggs by accident. Not saying that I ate an egg, but there was egg in something, right? Or that there was dairy in something. You go to a restaurant, you order something and you ask it to be vegan, like no dairy, no eggs, no everything, and they bring it to you. And then I eat it and I can tell there's a congestion building up in my nose and my forehead. And I was like, there was dairy in this. And I would ask, and then there would be like, oh yeah, there's a bit of dairy in there. But it's vegan. I was like, no, that's different. That's not vegan. Vegan should not have any dairy. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. But then I consume dairy at that point, right? Like to me, it takes like 5 to 10 minutes. I get a buildup in my nose and in my forehead, and there's tension that builds up, and I know right away that I consume some dairy. And also, you go to Starbucks, they mess up your drink. You drink it, you're like, that is clearly not oat milk. You can tell that it's not oat milk, even though you asked for oat milk, even though it's written oat milk on the cup, they still messed it up. And so, again, it's not about perfection, it's about consistency, right? So if something like that happens, you let them know, you teach the lesson, and then you just do your best to recover. Like there's some of them that had to like take digestive enzymes because my stomach was hurting so much, because when you don't eat that food for a long time, right, your gut microbiome is not built to digest that food. So I had to take some digestive enzymes, and I've had it's been 10 years. So there's been a few things like that throughout the years. But don't beat yourself up over it. Like, don't be like, oh, I messed up, let me just go drink a gallon of milk. No, something happened, whatever. Tell them so that they learn, they can better understand. Again, teach in a calm manner, right? So that they can actually learn versus being closed off to be like, this vegan's very rude because of this. And just move forward. And next time, make sure to double, triple check, right? I'll be honest, I've had a bunch of mistakes throughout the years because, I live in a vegan world. I run Fit Vegan Coaching, Fit Vegan Podcast. I interview vegan guests all the time. My friends are vegan. My wife is vegan. My environment is vegan. I go to vegan restaurants. And so when I connect with people or I travel, I go to different restaurants that I don't expect, and I order something, sometimes I forget to ask for it to be vegan because my brain lives such in a vegan world. Then they bring it to me and I'm like, that looks like cream, not like vegan cream. It looks like cream. And then they're like, yeah, it's a cream. I was like, sorry, I forgot to ask, can I have it vegan? Right. But because I live such in a vegan world, sometimes I forget when I order at the coffee shop or whatever it may be, because I'm so in that world that I just assume that everything is vegan. So, hey, good problem to have, to be in this vegan world all the time, but bad problem when it comes to, being distracted. You're on the phone, you're trying to order something and you just forget to ask for it. So again, this will happen. Just focus on consistency, and it'll make the world of a difference in your health, right? So lastly, the overall big lesson is it's simpler than you think, right? It does not have to be complex. If you listen to some of the lessons that I shared, a lot of them are just to not complexify things, right? Keep the nutrition simple, focus on diversity. If you're transitioning to eating plant-based, right? Body composition, different game, a little bit more complexity, but still simple. Focus on simplicity. If you want to impact people, focus on simplicity. You do you. You become a leading example. You become fitter and healthier, which is probably one of the reasons why you want to transition to eating plant-based in the first time. So just stick to your word, do your thing, and watch the people around you, watch you, and watch the changes that are going to happen in your life. And I promise you're going to come to you and ask questions. And it's going to be such a pleasure to help them, because then they're actually going to be receptive and not standoffish, and actually taking the information that you're sharing with them. All right. So just simplify the whole thing, right? If I had to go back 10 years, eat whole food plant-based the majority of the time. All right. Focus on diversity, stay within your calories, put an emphasis on protein, and work out. If you do that, you'll be in better health than 99% of the world, right? I tried to optimize things too much, where it made it to the point where it's too stressful. And I've seen that with people that try to transition eating plant-based. Like, this is too complex, it's too overwhelming. I got 2 kids, I got my job, and I'm trying to figure out this thing. And people just give up on it and just go back to eating the way that they were eating before, which again, make them feel terrible. But because it was simpler and less complex, they can do it without thinking. And so we all understand, all of us that are vegan and are plant-based, that there's a transition time to getting there. But we have to make those initial steps simple. If not, people just revert back to what they're doing because they felt like shit, but they kind of felt okay and they're used to feeling like shit. So it's not as big of a reason to change, right? Most people don't change until they get the heart disease, the heart attack, the cancer diagnosis, they get diabetes, whatever it may be. And so if you're overweight, your joints inflame, you're feeling comfortable in your body, and you feel like shit, you'd be surprised how many people want to stay in that position because they know how to deal with it. They are comfortable within the uncomfortability because that's all they know. So they don't know how much they're in pain because they haven't felt phenomenal yet. They haven't felt fit vegan phenomenal yet. And so to them, it's like, I feel like shit, but I kind of used to it, right? I know what it feels like. And so make the steps simple if you want to help people kind of transition, right? And so, those are the top 10 lessons. There's an 11th one thrown in there, but top 10 lessons that, man, I wish I knew when I first transitioned to eating vegan. And I would have been a fit vegan a lot sooner. It took me several years before I became a fit vegan. And so if your goal is for you to transition, take it slowly, keep it simple, focus on diversity. If your goal is to impact other people, lead by example, because whether you like it or not, you are a walking billboard for the movement in your community if you've told people that you're going to do this thing. And then lastly, for those of you that want help, want a simple process, want a proven step-by-step plan to get you to become a fit vegan, and we know that it works because we've helped over 800 people transform their body composition, their health, and their life. We've coached over 60 physicians, a ton of nurses, coached a lot of health professionals in a program to transform their own bodies. And with these tools that they've gained, they've been able to bring them to their patients. So I know that what I've built here works. So for those of you that are tired of being sick and tired, that just want the solution handed to them and are just ready to do the work, for those of you that value your time tremendously and you don't want to figure out the time to do it, which is a lot of people I personally work with one-on-one, and you just want to be given the blueprint, put the work, be held accountable, and get the transformation. For those of you that want these things, that want to transition, that want to get fitter, there's a link down below where you can book your free application call. I'm doing something special for the first 10 people that join in order to celebrate my 10-year vegan anniversary, right? So we're going to need a special rate for a 90-day program because normally it's 4 to 6 months minimum to work with us, but we're doing a special 90 days so you get a kickstart so you can end the year on a good note and start the year on a good note as well, right? So first 10 people that join, 90-day special discounted rate, and then it's available until October 25th is the cutoff, right? So if the 10 spots are used before then we're out of those 10 spots. That deal is done. It's just a regular program, which will be 4 months, 8 months, or 12 months, depending on the transformation goal that you have. And so if you've been wanting to work with us and you're looking for a smaller commitment to get started, this is your chance to do so. So book your application call down below. Just let them know that you're looking for this 90-day special for the 10-year vegan anniversary of Maxim, and the team will take care of you and get you all set up. All right. So if you guys enjoy this podcast episode, we have a lot of incredible guests coming up. Colleen Patrick Boudreau. We have Dr. Joel Furman coming on the show. We have Greg from Fruitive, which is an incredible vegan restaurant in Washington. A lot of fit vegan success stories that are coming up in the upcoming weeks. Cool workout videos with fit vegan members and recipe videos coming out on our YouTube channel. If you're watching on YouTube, then you're already going to be notified for it. And so be sure to check those out. Be sure to subscribe and be notified. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.